These games are popular, people remember them however old they might be, but there are others that were just as famous back then, and today they seem to have been forgotten. The next RPGs are not hidden gems by any means, but cult classics that need to be remembered. I want to make sure they stay that way, so with that goal set, let's begin! Number 7. Dark Cloud. Remember that PS2 title with the guy that looked like Link? That's how most people remember this action RPG. But nope, it isn't a Zelda clone by any means. It just shares some similarities, that's all. In Dark Cloud, you will go into an adventure to rebuild the towns that were destroyed by evil. Story isn't that interesting, but because rebuilding villages and their people totally make up for it. It's a dungeon crawler, which means the goal is to go through all these dungeons and long areas every time. And no, Tone, the Link clone, isn't the only playable character here. There's 5 in total and you can switch to any of them depending on the circumstances or challenges you face. Dark Cloud was a commercial success with almost 1 million copies sold worldwide. I think it's a forgotten gem that you need to remember simply because of its uniqueness. That and the fact that it was Level 5's first developed game. I know the sequel was a much better RPG, and that's the one everybody remembers, right? Right? Okay, so Dark Cloud 2, it's also a forgotten gem nowadays. So number 6 goes to the sequel, also known as Dark Chronicle. Not story related to its predecessor. Once again, a dungeon crawler with long areas and places to explore. The battle system was good but somewhat clunky in the first game. Here, it improved and it felt less technical and more hack and slash. Story had more charisma since it now focused more on the characters living in its big steampunk world. I say big because this game, although not open world by any means, really feels kinda large. There's a lot of things to do here, including side quests and minigames. Alchemy and synthesis are also a substantial part of it, adding variety to its gameplay mechanics. Honestly, I thought this game was pretty good, but it cannot be considered as a hidden gem, no way. It was popular, it was famous, people played it, people loved it. There's no way this RPG needs to stay forgotten, so you better remember it forever, or else... Number 5. Illusion of Gaia. Another action RPG that seems to have been left in the shadows for good is Illusion of Gaia. It's a game that was very popular during the 90s, easily walking among classics like Chrono Trigger or Secret of Mana. Eventually, attention stayed forever in those games, while this one faded into oblivion. With a gigantic cast of characters, even though you can only play as 3 of them, this Super Nintendo gem paved the way to many other action RPGs. Just like in Dark Cloud, it's a game that makes you play with all 3 guys, giving them a lot of importance. Combat was simple and primitive, but it was one of the first of its kind. The exploration, however, was beautiful. It included real places like the Egyptian pyramids or the Great Wall of China. This was a very innovative game, so why was it left forgotten to rot in a closet? No sir, you need to remember this cult classic on the Super Nintendo, because it totally deserves to come back. I mean, to your memories. Number 4. Shining Force. I often see comments from people referring to this game as a hidden gem. Are you kidding me? I thought Shining Force was one of the most historically important RPGs of all time! It's one of the very first strategy RPGs ever made, highly influential, and a solid competition to Fire Emblem. Sega always includes this game and its also forgotten sequel in each and every one of their collections. So how come it's become a hidden gem? That's simply outrageous. Shining Force is a giant classic from the early 90s, with an extremely charming cast of characters, a simple story for every type of gamer, and a great JRPG for beginners. Its simplicity offered not only a balanced challenge, but also a fun and addictive adventure. And I don't even want to start talking about its masterful soundtrack, criminally underrated, or else I could go on and on and on. This strategy icon definitely needs to be remembered forever and never forgotten once again. Number 3. Erick the LAT Collection. I didn't know which one to pick out of the PS1 games, so I went with all of them. Well, the third game was okay, and so was the spin-off, but if you want to forget about them, I won't haunt you at night. The first 2 games, however, are also iconic games and cult classics that everyone needs to remember. The whole point of this list was to discuss JRPGs that were big back in the day, now being buried in the sand. Erick the LAT, believe it or not, was huge in Japan, and when Working Designs localized it, it was very popular. It might be forgotten because it was 2002, very late in the PS1 lifespan. Yeah, we already had back then a bunch of strategy RPGs floating around, but they were definitely not big in numbers. Erick the LAT, just like Shining Force, was a cool refreshment from all those really hardcore experiences. It was a breath of fresh air, also with great cast of characters, fantastic and very unique soundtrack, and battle mechanics that were easy to understand. Erick the LAT 1 and 2, one being a direct sequel to the other, do not deserve to be forgotten. I think they're still very fun to play, easily on par with many different contenders of the genre. Number 2. Legend of Legaia. All this talk about remasters and remakes of old classics, the attention still on Star Ocean, Xenogears, Grandia, and even The Legend of Dragoon, but no one remembers good old Legaia. This game has a very unique battle system. You could create different combinations of attacks and maneuver skills in a lot of ways. I always enjoy the challenge this provided, since it made battles easier or harder depending on your approach. The world in this game seemed decaying but beautiful at the same time. Exploring the different areas and towns was always a pleasant experience. There's only 3 playable characters, but they're full of personality and charisma, and a very interesting development. I'm pretty sure some people haven't forgotten the really cool soundtrack with some folklore influences from ancient times. Legaia is still kind of remembered nowadays, considering it was also a big cult classic from the late 90s, but kind of doesn't work for me. So here I am to remind you once again of its awesomeness. Number 1. Radiata Stories. At last we arrive at my number 1, a personal favorite and a game perhaps forgotten for its lack of marketing. Just like Erick the LAT, it was never released in Europe, so that may also be one of the reasons. It was developed by Triace, the creators of Valkyrie Profile and Star Ocean. Hell, the Secret Dungeon even had Landon Valkyrie as a playable character, and Lizard Valet as a special boss. In any case, this action RPG revolves around a young man who becomes a soldier in the army and then ends up being a mercenary. Its most outstanding feature is the fact that you can recruit almost every single character in the town of Radiata. Yeah, these people, these normal people, they join your party each with their own unique set of skills and abilities. The game offers a 2-route split. One where you stay in Radiata, meaning you can keep recruiting human characters there. The other one takes you to the rest of the world, where you can have all kinds of creatures joining your party. I mean, how awesome is that? We're talking about a game with over 170 playable characters. That's almost twice as in any Suikoden game. It also has some of the craziest boss battles I've ever seen in a JRPG. It's insulting to think this game is becoming a forgotten gem nowadays. It needs to be remembered, it needs more love, and it definitely needs a release in Europe! At least digitally, come on! So those were my picks for this video, games that I strongly believe you need to remember. I'm sure there are more JRPGs that feel forgotten nowadays, but that's your job to spam the comment section with them. I want to thank you guys for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!